All right, everybody, welcome to episode number 28 of the Still City Insider podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jeremy Ritz, alongside Jim Wexel. Matt Cecil is joining us today, and we have a great show planned for you. We're going to talk NFL draft. Believe it or not, it is only a few days away this coming Thursday, round one. Jim, Matt, how are you guys doing?
Doing great, Jeremy. How you doing? Hi, Jim.
Hi, Matt. Tomorrow we return to, well, we don't return yet. We are going to Heinz Field for the what do we call it? The non-information press conference. Anyway, it is, most of these press conferences are non-information, but this pre-draft one, where Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert sit up front and say nothing, is the most uninformative press conference. So you will all be seeing tweets and texts from everybody tomorrow. I don't know that there are any questions I need to ask them, but it will be at Heinz Field, and there will be a lunch. I mean, you guys aren't with the reporting crew, so this is a big deal, step by step, getting back in that locker room. Now, we were told that we will be holding the press conferences for the draft in the Southside facility. That is huge. That means we're making a step from the racquetball courts in the indoor practice facility, Bill Cowher's old racquetball court. And we were stuffed in there for 2 years. And now we're going to get back in the building, at least in our media room that was used as football. And
Nice.
so, and you just think the next step will be the locker room.
We hope so.
And that's huge. That's
For you,
huge
Jim.
for
I
me.
hope so.
So anyway, I've wasted enough of your time on that. But that's what's happening. Tomorrow is a big press conference of uninformation.
So it all gets kicked off with Kevin Colbert, Mike Tomlin in their press conference, and then Thursday, round one, rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, and then rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. We are going to talk NFL draft here today, specifically about your Pittsburgh Steelers. We're also going to get into the Terrell Edmonds signing and just looking at free agency as a whole, what positions that this team really needs to work on in terms of depth in this draft. But hey, what better way to start a Steelers podcast than talking about Duck Hodges? I got my in Duck We Trust shirt on here. He retired from the Ottawa Red Blacks. So what a short career for a retirement.
So much promise, and then quick retirement.
Yeah.
Who knew that was coming?
He'll be at a bar trivia night. He'll be an answer to one of those questions. But again, in jest, I mentioned Duck there. But the real news that we got on Friday, Terrell Edmonds re-signs with the Steelers, 1-year deal, $2.5 million, which is significantly less than what he would have received if the team would have picked up his 5th-year option. But looking at that signing in terms of impact for the Steelers, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first thoughts, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I thought maybe like it took this long. Maybe the Steelers wanted a 2-year deal and he wanted a 1-year prove it. Maybe it was like 2 years. They're offering 2 years, $8 million, like they did with Witherspoon and Wallace, and he wanted a 1-year prove it deal. They said, okay, well, if you come back in a 1 year, we're going to give you basically veteran minimum, because all those deals that they did, whether it's Jack, Witherspoon, Wallace, it's team control. And I like seeing the re-signing. Me personally, I would like to see 2 years so that they had a little more team control, but maybe that's what they agreed to. I don't know.
I was reading Matt's column, very good column. And
Thanks.
I began to settle in on your boy, Dax Hill from Michigan, and that's where you're located. So you get to watch a lot of Michigan. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I'm trying to look for anybody but a quarterback. and Jordan Davis is going to be drafted earlier. And I'm not sure I need an offensive lineman, but I would have no problem with an offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
So this Dax Hill was starting to make a lot of sense. And then they signed him. And I tweeted, just when I was settling in on Dax Hill, this happens.
But see, I think.
And see, I got Dale Lawley's, I got his whole argument chain, came over to argue about this crap with me.
Mm-hmm.
because it's only been 1 year. I heard it all. I heard it all. So you can continue this argument, Matt.
Oh, no,
why
not an
Jack Hill
argument.
is still in the picture. Why they're going to draft a first-round safety for the third time in 7 years.
Because I don't think he's a safety necessarily. I think he's more of a corner.
But we're going to draft Mike Hilton in the first round.
Souped up
But
Mike.
we,
Hilton.
I mean,
not necessarily, but here's what I'm looking at, because there's still a lot of uncertainty at the inside linebacker position. You know, they're hoping Bush bounces back. You know, you hear about Miles Jack and he's sitting out Wednesday practices.
what does that have to do with the slot corner?
I don't think he's necessarily a slot corner. I think if Edmonds can play inside and nickel and dime and play more of an inside linebacker, what a lot of the coaches are doing now is they don't even call them free safety and strong safety. It's split safety. So they got split safeties and they can put them in the 2 deep, which a lot of teams are doing.
Who plays deep though? Hill's a slot corner.
He's a slot corner, but he's also played deep at free safety. So you can put him deep in a cover 2 like look, but you can also put him in the slot and you can put him on the outside, and then maybe you develop him as a corner moving forward. I never really looked at him, because I've watched him play a couple of years, as like a free safety. They say he's a free safety.
Well, that's why I'm saying he's a slot corner.
He's a slot corner, but he typically will follow the best receiver around on the opponent's, you know, whoever they're playing.
So this is a corner and not a safety.
To me, he's more of a corner. You can develop him into a corner, and he's a souped up Trey Norwood. What did Tomlin call him last year? The Swiss Army knife. I mean, he is a Swiss Army knife that runs 4.38, you know, with crazy, you know, 6'5", 4, 3 cones. So he's agile. He's a 5-star recruit. He's 21 years old. They like those 21-year-olds. I don't think it changes anything necessarily, because I see him more as a corner possibly in waiting. And then the floor for him is Mike Hilton role in the slot, right? Like, I think the ceiling is stud corner. We could put him at left corner, put him on the outside, maybe in certain situations, put him back deep with Minka and move those guys around. But, you know, worst case scenario, we got him in the slot and he can be a slot guy who blitzes and he tackles well there. He's not a strong safety. So, you know, I didn't see him fitting that role with Terrell Edmonds' spot anyway. But that's just my take.
What do you do with Cam Sutton then?
Cam Sutton, you move him around still. They want to move him, I would think, more inside. But, you know, Dax would be just a nickel and dime type guy. You just move those guys around, whether you put Dax on the outside, Sutton on the inside, or vice versa. I don't know. Maybe it's too many bodies. I don't think he's the number one target. That's why I got him at, you know, my third choice if I had a top 5.
Who were your first 2?
The defensive linemen. So Jordan Davis and Travis Jones.
Travis Jones.
Yeah.
Well, Travis Jones has he's a I'm sorry, Jeremy, did you want to ask questions?
No, you would just to kind of bring it back. We don't want to give away our picks at 20 here, but
I don't think anyone really cares who we like. But
I'm not into trying to predict. I'll just give you, like, I got a handful of guys I really like at 1, and so.
Well, Travis Jones didn't have a great season. You know, everybody says look at the Clemson tape. I looked at the Clemson tape. I'm like, come on, what's he doing here?
He doesn't get moved. Yeah, I mean, he's. You know, you can't move him. The Clemson couldn't move him. He gets penetration. He's not like explosive, but I don't see, like, I think that when you're 325 pounds, it's hard to look explosive. I mean, the numbers say differently. The kid moves well. You know, most of the scouting community is saying, hey, he could play 2 gap. He could play 1 gap. You can move him around. He could play dime or nickel. He's got the athletic ability to do so. You see him move, and he does have that ability to do so. You know, you get NFL, you know, a little bit higher level, because I know there's good coaching over there at Connecticut, but, you know, you got Cam Hayward and Alualu tutelage. There's a lot of upside there. In that worst case scenario, he's a guy that pushes the pocket and stuffs to run. But there's versatility in his athleticism. That's why I think he's unique. I saw Chris Sims said between 20 to 32, he sees him going. I was like, yeah, 20. You know, because Jordan Davis is not going to be there. And, for this whole draft for me is about this whole off season, really. And Jeremy, you mentioned the off season. And I thought they got a good start at building a foundation, at least with the offensive line. And now they need to fix the cracks in the defensive line. With somebody like that, now you're holding that defensive line. You're getting push on the defensive line. You're getting push on the offensive line. Now you got the play action that you're hiding with inside and outside zone, and you're giving your team your best shot. I think that's what this year's, I don't want to say rebuild, but that's what the offseason really should be about. I get worried about like the quarterback position. You draft it, and then now you go in next year, and maybe they drafted a D lineman in round 2. A guy like Logan Hall can play the end, but now you got holes there along the D line because suddenly maybe Cam Hayward gets older, and you get rid of Tua Tagovailoa, and now this new quarterback is stuck with holes everywhere, and you don't have inside linebackers because Jack and Bush didn't work out, and now you're putting this kid in an awful position. I think like this year is just, hey, let's build this foundation, give this Trubisky guy an opportunity, and then let's reassess after the year. That's what I think I'm working toward on this offseason.
Just to kind of pull that all back here together, we started by talking about Terrell Edmonds being resigned this past Friday, but in looking at free agency as a whole for the Steelers, they did address the majority of the positions of need. 2 positions that weren't addressed: defensive line obviously makes it a priority in the draft. Where is it first round? Is it later? We don't know.
Does it?
I think they have to address it in some way, but then also wide receiver too. They signed Gunnar Olszewski, who's going to be more of a special teamer. Miles Boykin signed this week, off the waiver wire, was let go by the Ravens, a guy that they had interest in back in 2019. They've made, at least from my assessment, enough moves to be able to draft best player available. But if it isn't defensive line, if it isn't wide receiver,
they never do that. They never go best player available. Never. In spite of what we're going to hear Monday 20 times, it'll be a unanimous Steelers decision. It'll be the best player available. And it'll be, no, we don't talk about individual players, but I'll gladly talk about the position overall. That's what they're going to say 100 times. Anyway, I don't buy that best player available. We've got enough garbage in free agency that we can take jewels anywhere. I don't buy that.
Mm-hmm.
And have they, you say they still need a defensive line. What do we not know about Tuitt? Alu is in there working out. Why are they not attending Travis Jones, doing anything with Travis Jones? Was he a visitor? Was Travis Jones a visitor?
No. Maybe
Wyatt, I think we can scratch Wyatt off the board.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to get the big guy from Georgia, even though people say he'll be taken out on 3rd downs. I think that's a lazy interpretation of Jordan Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Because that athletic ability, somebody teach this man to play on 3rd down.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know where the defensive line stands because of Tuitt. I don't know what's going on with Tuitt. And we'll start to find more of that out. We'll get some non-information on that front tomorrow. But as we creep back onto the field to watch, then we'll know more, and we'll get to talk to people. I'll get to talk to sources. We'll finally get some inside information back flowing through our network. But I don't think defensive line has been settled at all, or we know anything about defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, it seems like all the beat writers in Pittsburgh are clamoring for defensive linemen. If I'm looking at Ray Fittipaldo or I'm trying to think of the other writer, Dulac, they're all talking about defensive linemen. They're talking Devontae Wyatt, which I agree. I don't think that's an option with the off the field issues. I don't see that happening. Jordan Davis, I think, is a no-brainer if he's there. And Jim, I'd agree with you too. A guy with that type of athleticism, you're going to find a creative way to use him, not just at the nose position. I'm of the belief that I don't see a need this year in the first round. And Matt, you and I talked about this a couple episodes ago. We had a disagreement because you were prioritizing defensive line, but I think because we don't know what's going to happen with Tuitt yet, you still have Cam Hayward, who's playing at a high level. All the reps that those younger guys got last year. I'm not saying that they're out of this world talents, but Alulu coming back. Yeah, there's depth there. I think
bodies.
Yeah. Right. And I think you could wait and you could prioritize some other positions. So I don't see D-line being a round one target, at least for me. I could see in the later rounds, but
they might like Loudermilk a lot more than we realized.
I thought he showed some things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I liked him as a 5-tech. He looked like a classic Steelers 5-tech.
Yeah.
And I liked Adams as a nose. If you're talking about depth, and you got your Davis twins and Wormley. I mean, nobody loves Wormley, but he is a veteran. If he's going to be a 4 guy, I like him a lot better as a 4.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It all boils down to what's up with Tuitt.
Yeah.
And we don't know. They know more.
Right.
So that's where we're at in limbo. And I don't know that there's a defensive lineman available at 20, though. If Jordan Davis is taken, I don't know if Travis Jones is that guy. People say, well, they didn't even go to his pro day. But you know what? The defensive coordinator / interim head coach there is a longtime Steelers defensive assistant, Lou Spanos.
Mm-hmm.
And Lou's a great guy. I felt like calling him a couple times. But if they do draft Travis, that'll be my first call is to Lou Spanos. Mm-hmm. And, just because the Steelers know Lou Spanos and Lou Spanos is there doesn't mean he likes him.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just assume, well, hey, the Steelers grew up, the Steelers ate with Kenny Pickett, late lunch with him every day. They know him. Well, but do they like him? Maybe they don't like him. They know him. I'm sure they like Pickett, but maybe Lou Spanos doesn't like him. Maybe that's why they didn't go to pro day. I don't know. But that's an easy call for them to get real information on Travis Jones.
Sure.
Yeah. I think some of the other positions that potentially this team could look at in round one, though, if you look at historical precedent, it's not really there. There's a need at wide receiver. But when's the last time they drafted a wide receiver in the first round? I think you have to go back to the Bill Cowher era. Was it Plexico Burris, and before that, Troy Edwards?
Yeah. Oh, Santonio Holmes. They did.
Santonio Holmes, yeah. But never in Tomlin's time has there been a wide receiver taken. They've had success in the later rounds. Mm-hmm. You guys see them maybe going after a wide receiver? If someone drops like an Olave, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But if he drops at 20, do you think wide receiver is a possibility?
Go ahead, Jim.
Olave.
Olave sounds better.
Yeah. So does Hurts. But it's Fritz, right?
Yeah, H is silent. Do you think they could pull the trigger at 20 on a receiver, or do you think they're more likely to go later rounds?
I'll defer to Matt on that.
I hope they go later rounds. I mean, what's going on with Deontay Johnson? If you know that you can be in the range of signing him, or you say, hey, well, we have no chance of signing him, and then it makes it more realistic. I just look at the position in general over the last, going back to Hines Ward, we've only had a couple guys re-sign. And I think the first and second rounds, you want to make sure that should be the goals. We're going to draft positions that we want to extend, beyond the first contract. Mm-hmm. And there's a very poor record of that with the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's possible, of course, because they've positioned themselves and they could really draft just about any position. So I mean, Olave is a possibility, or Olave, they've been saying Olave on TV all this time, and maybe
I just looked it up. Olave.
Okay.
Hey, maybe I'm wrong. So let's hope they don't draft him.
Yeah, I just want to build inside out this year, and it's a possibility, but you got Freiermuth. There's only one ball on the field, and you got Freiermuth that you hopefully showed a lot. And I think that if you can throw the ball past the line of scrimmage this year a little bit more consistently, maybe he can get out there to the, off some play action and run a double move like he showed. And he's got great hands. And you see what Claypool and Deontay have. Those are your top 3 guys. I just look at it as more of a second, third round thing.
Yeah. So
If you don't think you're going to be able to re-sign DJ,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at Claypool, who's involved in more clownish activity as we go, I don't know that you can say, well, if we lose DJ, we got Claypool. Claypool's the guy I would look to pass along and use a draft pick to pass him up eventually.
Sure.
If you can sign DJ.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. I
No,
don't know that I can trust Claypool.
I don't know what he's been doing lately. I'm not on Twitter, but if he's still acting immature, that's not a good sign. That's kind of why I thought, after the draft, if you can still sign a veteran out there, but they signed Boykin, so I don't know how much room there is. We'll see how they draft positions, but that room needs leadership, and it needs like an older veteran. It doesn't have to be T.Y. Hilton. That just comes to mind because we talked about it before, Jeremy.
yeah.
A guy who's in his early 30s, has played 10 years, has had success, hasn't won a Super Bowl, maybe has been a professional, and they need professionalism in that room a little bit.
They need professionalism everywhere. I like the big man. I've said it since December. They need a big man with a lot of character to run that locker room for the next 10 to 15 years. And if we're talking about wide receiver, and there's somebody in the first round that has Hines Ward kind of character and first round talent, I have no problem taking a first round receiver.
I've liked what Najee's had to say lately. Because when he says, hey, we take on all comers, we want people coming in a division. I want the competition. I like that dude. I'll ride with him. Like he's got a certain level of energy, and he's got a certain want to that'll rub off on the room. I want to build through him, because he just reeks of leadership for a younger guy.
Yeah.
Energy at the same time. So I think
I like TJ Watt's brand of leadership.
I do too.
More masculine frame, quieter, more intense. I don't want some guy that's seeking out Brooke Pryor for interviews all the time. I don't.
Yeah.
Mama, baby me. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So that's where I fall down a little bit with Najee. Give me
Okay.
TJ Watt. Give me that kind of character.
Oh, I love that too. Him and Cam.
So let's bring this down to pick number 20. And you don't have to give, if you don't want to go this route, who you would select. But let's say one or two guys that if they're on the board, if you're the GM and you're selecting at that pick, which player is going to best help this team? And it doesn't have to be right away. Could be down the road. But who at number 20, give two names that you feel this is the next Pittsburgh Steeler here.
Go ahead, Jim. I'll let you.
Well, we've done everything to avoid talking about quarterbacks, and that's where they're going. I'll say Malik Willis, only because I'm swept up in all this now, because I fear that they're going to trade up for him. So if I'm sitting at 20 and he falls, that's the first name. Of course, Jordan Davis is my other guy. And I haven't looked at the offensive tackles that are supposedly not going to fall to them. So I haven't paid much attention. I'm looking at more of a Zion Johnson guy type, can play all five positions really. I just want a real man. I hate to sound like, that gender stereotyping, but I think they need a real leader. I think they're trending toward too many clowns.
Side. Yeah.
I think they lost Pouncey and DeCastro and Alejandro. Alejandro was the guy that those two were afraid of. Trust me on that. Alejandro's a bad dude with a TJ Watt personality and very intelligent. I love talking to Alejandro, and I don't want DeCastro and Pouncey to be mad because I love talking to them and they know it. And we often had great discussions, but Alejandro, once you could pry past the veneer, he had a lot to say. So you lost some real character there with those three guys and Ramon, four guys, and Marcus Gilbert. They haven't replaced that stuff. Chooks, I think Moore has got that potential. And the rest of the guys, I don't know. James Daniels kind of impressed me, his attitude in the Zoom call. But that's what I want. I want some real character. I want some Hall of Fame type interior linemen on either side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, well, Zion Johnson's a great kid. Trevor Penning,
He
Yeah.
seems like a lunatic.
he's nasty.
I don't need over the edge. I don't need
Sure.
a guy that's going to have a personal foul every 3 plays.
No, I don't know what his character is. I don't know, but if he's good dude. I want nasty on the field too. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm not studying him for hours on end to know for sure. Like, but I just like somebody.
We asked you to come on.
Yeah.
I thought you were studying.
Oh, I study when I can. But yeah, I mean, he's got an edge, and you want those guys on offense. You want those guys along the line. Look, Ritter, Willis, Pickett, they display leadership. They look like leaders at the quarterback position, so maybe they are interested. And just another maybe name out there I like, but it's corner. I like the Trent McDuffie kid.
Okay.
So
that makes sense to me. A zone corner who's physical, that's Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, his movement skills are incredible. He's just a good football player. So he could play inside and outside. And, Jair Alexander type comes to mind there. So, those are possibilities that I think, I would like Zion Johnson, but they drafted they signed all those interior linemen during free agency. But maybe he can play right tackle.
Maybe he can play. Just stop there.
Play.
I know they signed 4 guys, but maybe this guy can play.
Yeah. But the good news is there's a lot of good names, and they can go in several different directions and hopefully get a quality player and leader.
So at the end of the day, when it's all said and done and the dust settles, do they take a quarterback at 20? Or do you think if Willis is gone, that
Well, you asked me who would I pick? Who will they pick? My prediction: Malik Willis 1 and Desmond Ritter 2.
Mm-hmm.
Thus begins the first step of the 12-year search for a quarterback.
Well, I'll be nervous when Seattle picks at 9 because I'm hoping they take Willis. Because I just don't think this is the year. I don't want to do it. I mean, he's 6 foot. He's barely 6 foot tall. He's not 6'3". He's a lot of sacks. He took all that stuff. Ritter's a leader. He's inaccurate. I don't see how he's going to necessarily be better than what the Steelers already have. But okay, I don't.
So what you're saying is, all right, these guys suck. But if that's what you want, okay.
I hope they don't do it. I just don't think. I don't know if they necessarily suck, but they're game managers, just about every one of them except for Willis. You're gonna have to ask them to do the same things that you're gonna have to ask Trubisky to do anyway. Plus Trubisky, here's the thing. I don't like to talk about the Dwayne Haskins stuff, but I mean that's traumatic for those guys. Those guys are all there in Florida. And, they're rallying around each other, and he comes to Pittsburgh and he calls those guys down there, and it's not his fault, but that's got to be traumatic on him. Najee visited Trubisky for 8 hours, man. They talk football and they have a level of respect. I think he's got a level of leadership and I just think that this group deserves an opportunity to rally around each other. Now, if there's an incredible talent and it's a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young or it's a Mahomes-like arm who's 6'3", I understand it, but I don't really understand it with any of these guys at 20. There's a reason why they're falling into 22 for a reason. Or I just said that, but there's a reason why they're falling into 20,
Yeah. It's dismal. It's a dismal outlook for this draft. They're hell bent on drafting a quarterback, and these quarterbacks suck.
Hey man, I was rooting for them because that's what a good fan should do sometimes, to lose since the Tennessee game. You could see the handwriting on the wall in the last 2 games and just shaking my head. And that last game, I'm like, Ben's going to pull it out in the end. This is what he's going to do. And here we go. Now we could have been picking at 14 and you got Jordan Davis. You didn't have to worry about it. All this talk. He would have been there. And that 6 picks is going to probably turn out important because that's the guy I think we all agree on ideally.
Well, we do. I don't know. I
Us three.
I got some unasked for blowback on Jordan Davis in the Edmonds signing. So I mean, I'm all in for a corner. If you want to take a corner, fine. But I think Art Rooney too has got to say to them, you're not drafting another safety first. You've had your turns. If you can't pick a safety better than this without trading for somebody else's number one, it's like same with corner. The only two defensive backs they've really put together are other teams have drafted, Joe Hayden and Minka.
Sure. Yeah. They were never in a position to get a top
good corner. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I give him a little pass on that. Right. But safety, you know, 2 number ones and a number 2 in the last 6 drafts. Come on. How much you going to spend at a position that shouldn't call for that?
No, I don't think they should draft a safety. I just don't think Dax.
Well, Hill's a safety. If you're going to call him a corner, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just it depends. If they think he's a safety, then no, they shouldn't draft him.
My only concern is if just kind of backtracking a bit. I know you mentioned Malik Willis, that he's the guy in this draft. Just what it would take to move up to get him, I think it's too steep. So I hope they don't go that route, because you're at least going to have to give up a number 1 next year. That's too steep of a price for a guy that I'm not sold on. Willis. I liked him early on in this process, but I think you could find an equivalent, maybe not as explosive or athletic of a talent in that Big 5, those quarterback names, but that's just too much to give up. So any other closing thoughts here on the draft before we wrap up? Again, just a few days away. Anything in the later rounds that you're looking at, or day 3?
Yeah, I wrote a couple pieces. One, banging the table for Hassan Haskins in round 4. Whether it's him or another running back, I think if you're building the foundation of running the football, they should get another running back there, because you're going to wait to the end of the 6th round. I like a guy that's similar in build to Najee, somebody that's 6'1", 225 like Brian Robinson, or 6'2", 230 like Haskins, where you can keep the train moving, because you're going to build a certain offense hopefully around him. Well, if he goes down, and now you're back to Benny Snell and Kalen Ballage, and, now you're trying to ask Trubisky to throw the ball. And I think if you're really trying to build toward getting back to Steeler type football, you got to have a legitimate second guy. And I like guys like Khalil Shakir in the 3rd round. And, it's just a guy that's a slot, but you can see he's tough over the middle. He's willing to break tackles. He's fearless inside. If they don't draft a receiver in round 2 or round 1 and 2, I think there's plenty of guys. I'm not as enamored with the Calvin Austins and the Wan'Dale Robinsons that are tiny. We've seen how the tiny guys and how that works out. I want somebody that can block. So that's why I like him. But there's depth there at receiver. And then one other guy, I like the Josh Pascal kid. I think, getting outside linebackers / guy that can play inside and maybe the dime, 6'2.5", 268, 3-time captain, edge setter in the run game. I think that could help out the run defense as well. So those are thoughts that I have going into the first 4 rounds.
Yeah.
I agree, Matt. Your stuff has been fantastic this year. I've never been so excited for a running back in my life in the 4th round. That's fantastic.
You know what? He's probably my favorite. I've been watching Michigan football since a little kid in the 80s, and I just fell in love with his game because he doesn't make mistakes. It's just consistent, and he's not the greatest. He's not going to kill you in a 40-yard dash, but man, he just doesn't get negative yardage. He pass protects. He doesn't drop the ball. He never fumbles. He's good in the short yardage, and it's like, this is, your poor man's Najee, that if Najee needs a spell, this guy's going to come in and keep the thing moving. And so I think they should be looking for that ideally, and not going back to 5'9" Benny Snell, and just have like a legitimate option. And you can do that. So the way I constructed it was, because the draft should be about a year or 2 from now, but building that foundation where you got guys that can contribute this year all the way through the 4th round, so we'll see what happens.
Well, they could just have a 1st and then a 4th. So all of these, and your point about outside linebacker is fantastic too. That awoke me to their need for another one. They do. They want 3, and they did so well with Ingram. And so, yeah, all these things we want, trade down.
That's right.
Well, we would love that. Pick up an extra pick, and then while you're down there, draft Travis Jones.
Right. That's why
draft Zion Johnson.
Yeah, 25 to 28. Pick up another rounder.
And then pick up some extra guys. But you really do have to gulp, hold your nose, and take a quarterback at some point. You do. I don't know that you can count on Trubisky because quarterbacks aren't going to come in and play their first year anyway. I know I covered Ben Roethlisberger, but
I don't, you don't either. I don't totally dismiss Mason Rudolph at this point. Not to say that he's going to be a championship, franchise quarterback, but I do think there's a Neil O'Donnell type ceiling for him if provided the right situation. It's not what's his name, Jones, that we had back there a couple of years. He's used to back up for 5 years.
He's better than Landry Jones.
Better than Landry Jones. So, that's what I'm saying. He's not that. I think he's manager capable in getting you to a certain, so I don't think it's totally barren. And I just like, from everything I hear, from the amount of arms that are there next year to the top end talent, it just seems better next year.
Yeah.
It's going to cost a lot more to move up next year, though.
Yeah, sure.
That Neil O'Donnell team was just soaked in talent.
Good, man.
There was so much talent. Offensive line was so good. The running backs, Jerome Bettis, well, he wasn't there yet. Bam Morris was even good enough.
Bam Morris wasn't that fast, Yeah,
Mark Bruner could block anybody.
Mm-hmm.
The receivers were a little weak. Yancey think that was good. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that was a great defense for one. Mm-hmm. Is this team there? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think maybe after this draft, it could be.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get.
Right.
You get the Pascal type dude and you get the defensive lineman, and now you're collapsing the pocket for TJ and Alex Highsmith takes a step and Bush returns healthier. You just all of a sudden you could be top 5 again.
Yeah.
Right.
One player I want to bring up here, potentially 3rd round. I know you guys were talking earlier about defensive back, but Marcus Jones out of Houston. I don't know if you've spent any time doing any film study on him, but talking about Mike Hilton, I could see this guy, in the later rounds being just that similar stature, 5'8", 174, a little bit smaller than Hilton, but all the same type of attributes. Do you see him as a possibility? I think he was even in for a visit this week with the team. But thoughts on Jones in the later rounds?
I don't think it'd be later rounds. I think if you don't get him in the 3rd, you're going to definitely have to get him in the 4th because he wouldn't be there 6th. And I don't know if he's going to make it to the 4th. And, he is sort of Mike Hilton Jr. with punt return and kick return ability. He's a football player. But, we'll see. I mean, he never ran. He's not overly fast. That's one of the things I want, and that's why I like Zion McCollum, is because I want somebody maybe in the 3rd round area who's got speed and can offset some of the corners that they already have that are 4.6 or mid 4.5 guys. I mean, they're good veteran dudes. I think everybody's going to, we talk about Levi Wallace and everybody gets excited about it, but the reality is he's really just another William Gay who's just a solid football player, and he's a try-hard guy, and he's a good dude. He's not going to blink out there. But
he was a walk-on at Alabama.
Right, he's a walk-on. I love his story.
It's great, and it's great. I watch MAC soccer, and they all have a flaw. There's a reason they're in the MAC, including my daughter.
Right.
There's a reason they're there.
Right.
There's a reason he had to walk on at Alabama.
There's a reason he's not getting that contract.
And it's a great story, but you can't have 4 or 5 of them.
Right.
Matt, real fast, did you just make an Antoine Blake reference to the cornerback?
I hope I didn't.
I was like, man, I haven't heard that name in a couple of years. I brought back some nightmares, man.
I was trying to ignore it. I've actually talked to him.
Okay. He changed his name to what, Romeo or something like that? Something.
I
Something
don't want to
crazy.
talk about him.
Well, I'll tell you what better note to end the show on than an Antoine Blake reference.
There you
But,
go.
Jim, Matt, great talking Steelers football with you today. NFL draft, again, that's coming up this Thursday. Round 1, we're going to find out after all the speculation that's been going on since the Steelers got throttled by the Chiefs. Will it be a quarterback? Will it be a defensive lineman? Or will it be somebody that we're scratching our heads? We are going to find out soon. But give us a like on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, check out Jim's work over on the Steel City Insider and Matt's work as well. You can follow Jim on Twitter at Jim Wexel. Matt, still any
Just YouTube my name. You might see some stuff on there.
All right. So YouTube Matt and check out his stuff. You can check out my work at thestillstudy.com. Give me a follow on Twitter at stillstudy, and we will see you back here for episode number 29 of the Steel City Insider podcast. Have a great day, everyone.